All right, so we got something very, very, very important going on. And what it is basically a secret division within the Social Security Administration that works under the umbrella of OIG. And what we're going to do is we're going to talk about what it is, how it works, and essentially what you should know about it. Now, some of you guys think of secret intelligence groups within some very large agency or some empire-like system, like the United States is, like ISB from the Star Wars universe. Well, this is not entirely unlike what the ISB is. It is a specific division inside the Social Security Administration that basically handles the operations related to investigating, using labs, figuring out forensics, etc. Now, how do we know about it? We know about it because basically in the Special Agent Handbook of the Social Security Administration's OIG, Office of the Inspector General, they have a section which has been released that talks about a specific group known as 001.060, the Intelligence and Analysis Division. So instead of ISB, what we have, and I don't mean like a negative thing, this is a good thing. We have to have this group because they have to be able to investigate people that are committing fraud. But instead of that ISB thing, we have what's called the IAD in Social Security. That's not a bad thing. They're the people who basically figure out who's essentially frauding the Social Security system. And when people fraud it, that's a major no-no because it uses up the trust fund money very quickly. Now, I'm going to read to you specifically from this book and explain to you what it means and go through the details of it. Here we go. IAD, known as the Intelligence and Analysis Division, is located at the SSA OIG OI headquarters and reports to the AIGI through the DAIGI, just executives within that system. This division is composed of teams of investigators, investigation analysts, forensic specialists, information technology specialists, and special agents under the supervision of an SAC director. So let me go ahead and give you the players again. These are the people that scrape your online profiles, get access to the back end of your computer system, grab your photos, grab your videos. These are the people who examine documents that you mail back to the SSA. These are the people who examine phone calls that you've had with the SSA and basically go through statements that you've made and pull them and put them into reports. Let me read them to you again. These are the players of the Intelligence and Analysis Division, known as IAD of the Social Security Administration. This division is composed of teams of investigation analysts, forensic specialists, information technology specialists, and special agents. So if I just break that down so you guys know who those people actually are, it's basically people who analyze files, people who are in lab coats doing science stuff, people who are doing IT tech stuff to pull stuff off servers that you may have posted at some point, and special agents that physically go out and interact with, the surroundings to learn more, pull more about you. Okay. The IAD is composed of two teams. There's the analytical team, okay, analytics team, and then there's the field support team, the FST. All right. So there's two divisions to this special secret group. It's the analytics team and the field support team, the FST. All right. Let's go through each one of these real quick. Super thank you to Diana for the $5 donation. That's absolutely amazing. We'll give the doggies treats. Absolutely. That's very, very cool. Very, very good. Thank you, Diana. Excellent. Okay. IADs. Okay. So this is a special secret division within the SSA CDI units, right? In the SSA OIG, rather. IAD's primary responsibility is to identify and target for investigation SSA's SSA's programs and operations that are potentially vulnerable to widespread fraud and abuse. Its success is dependent on numerous sources of information and support from SSA and other OIG components. The approach IAD will use to accomplish its mission includes the following: analysis of individual fraud cases, hotline allegations, audit reports, and reports on regional fraud committee initiatives. Also, proactive use of computer searches and matches to identify repetitious fraudulent transactions on SSA system perpetrated by employees or the public. So, like, if you're wondering, like, who's the secret division within the SSA, that catches the SSA employees that are selling your social security numbers, that are basically assigning themselves, child auxiliary benefits for, basically kids that don't exist and stuff like that. This is the group that will go ahead and search your online life and search your at home life, along with the Social Security employees' online life and at home life. They will also do intelligence developed from cooperative efforts with other law enforcement agencies and forensic tools. So they have their own lab, they have their own setup. They can pull prints, they can study DNA, they can do all kinds of stuff. They even have a whole tech division which can go into servers and pull information down. IAD serves as the IG's fraud and abuse intelligence gathering component. To successfully accomplish this, IAD shall, number one, effect liaison with other SSA components to keep abreast of their concerns regarding fraud, coordinate with other federal and state and local law enforcement agencies to identify areas of mutual concern, coordinate with SACs to establish interagency and intra-agency task forces, and prepare management implication reports, MERS, on vulnerabilities in SSA's programs or operations. The IAD SAC director serves as OI's primary liaison to OIG OA. When a field division has identified an administrative control or operational deficiency that may need audit attention, the FDSAC should forward the identification issue via memorandum to the IAD SAC director. IAD reviews, approves, and submits suspected administrative control or operational deficiencies identified by field personnel to OA for inclusion in the audit work plan. I'm sorry, the font's super small. That's why I'm having a little bit of a tough time. This activity should not be confused with requesting audit assistance with an open investigation. IAD also serves as OI's coordinator of national special projects and assists field offices with the development of local projects. Proposals for investigative projects or operations with national implications should be submitted for review via memorandum from the FDSAC to the IAD SAC director. Okay, so now you know there's a special group within the SSA that is charged with not only reviewing you, but the employees that work with you at the SSA. They want to find abuse, waste, fraud. And their main function is figuring out how bad it is. And when you guys see these like national, advertisements, national plans, national this and that, what you're checking into, what you're seeing is basically the work of this background secret society within the SSA that is directing you to not get frauded and directing you to go ahead and use your benefits in the legal, appropriate way. Now, do they have the people who basically go online and pull information that ultimately is used against you, by a DDS rep or an ALJ, to remove your benefits if they decide to at the adjudicative phase to do it? Yeah, this is the group. Is this the group that has the capacity to literally receive your documentation and study it and see what handwriting is on it and compare it to other handwriting, see basically what fingerprints they can find on it, review video footage, frame by frame that's been taken of you walking around? Yes, this is the group that does this stuff. Is this the group that has basically a lab that, is kind of like one of those TV shows where they're able to figure out what kinds of evidence they can pull out of a room that you were in? Yes. Is this the type of group who's able to, by looking at giant templates of pre-existing situations, right? Are they able to go ahead and say, okay, based off of this particular individual, this particular person who claims that they're disabled may not actually be disabled because they're following this type of, program or this type of platform or this type of direction with their life. For example, if you apply for certain licenses, permits, allowances, you go to holiday to certain places where there's certain activities available. You go live in a place where there's a lot of activities available, or maybe there's some sort of, photo of you interacting with people who are part of that activity. So one of the big things you have to understand is that some of you, as part of your mental impairments, you can't be around other people. Well, let me give you an example of a problem photo. Let's say that there's a photo of you where you're at some event, right? And you're there and you get a photo with you and a bunch of practitioners of Taekwondo, karate, Kung Fu, whatever. And let's say that you believe you're in the understanding that at the end of the day, if you were to do Kung Fu or Taekwondo or, some sort of karate or, Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, whatever, that it would make you feel better because of your mental impairments. But then the question becomes, if you have the mental capacity to go ahead and, let's just put it like it is, follow direction, memorize forms, complete physical training, interact with other trainers, etc., right? Then the question becomes, well, how bad is your mental impairment realistically? Okay. And this falls in line with the same exact ideology of somebody who wants to go boating. Okay. So you get, I see this mostly on the male side, right? Well, I got my disability benefits, but I'm still going to go, boating. I'm still going to go fishing, right? And so one of the problems that, you run into, and that many of you, I guess, just haven't really been watching my channel enough, or you haven't seen the video specifically on it. The main reason there was a massive, fraudulent, federal, criminal lawsuit against veterans and police officers and firefighters, the main reason there were all of these things occurring after 9/11, okay, was because there was a very large group of fraudulent individuals who basically applied for and were able to receive disability benefits because they were a part of what was going on with 9/11. And these are individuals traditionally we expect the government to leave alone, because we expect the government to kind of leave veterans alone, police officers alone, sheriffs alone, firefighters alone, etc. And as a result of that, when this stuff all kind of came down, what happened was they had photos of these people playing golf. They had photos of these people jet skiing around. They had photos of these people smiling at a party. Now, some of you will say, okay, jet skiing, that makes sense. But you'd be surprised. There's a lot of disabled people who jet ski. And some of you will say, okay, well, golfing, God, that's, you got to walk away, you got to swing a golf club. That makes sense. It shouldn't, okay, da 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 da. But then where the wiggle room is, where a lot of you agree that, hey, wait a minute. It doesn't make sense that a disabled person couldn't be caught smiling at some restaurant. I mean, what, they can't go out to eat? And that's where the cultural change happens. You go back to 2010, 2012, 2013, 2014, whatever. You go back to that area, a lot of people in that era and before were found disabled that would never be found disabled nowadays. It just wouldn't, right? Now you go back to 9/11, there were a lot of people found disabled who hardly had any medical evidence, who hardly had severe impairments, and they were still found disabled. And so what happened was the culture changed over time because they didn't want to keep paying so many people to go on disability benefits. Especially what the IAD got smart about in this particular situation is they looked at the situation and said, hey, wait, we know what types of individuals are going to be playing the game the most. And the types of individuals that are going to be playing the game the most are those with multiple pensions. What do I mean? Well, if you have somebody who is in the military and they get a pension or compensation, PNT or TDIU, then they know that they've got a check. And then a lot of those individuals worked for law enforcement after the military. And you guessed it, if they made it, they get another pension check. They get another check on top of the VA check that they're already getting. And then what happens is usually, they seek out their SSDI benefits or at some point their retirement benefits. So they get another check per month on top of that. So what you end up with are people who are getting 10,000, 12,000, 14,000, 15,000, 16,000, 17,000. Some of them I've seen are even over $20,000 a month, specifically to not do anything because they've earned their pension, right? I mean, pensions are going away, obviously, for the most part, but they were able to be smart about it and link into them and tap into them during their lifetime while they still exist. Obviously, millennials and people in those generations, they're not going to have access to a lot of that stuff in the same way, but is what it is. Now, as a result of that, I mean, how those individuals are living. It's never going to be like that going into the future. It's not like that even now for all the younger people. So what happens is you get these judges looking at these situations, and the number one thing that they go to when they look at this is they go, hey, 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 they got a lot of money coming in per month, and they got all the time in the world. So that's an easy target because that means that person is low-hanging fruit, has the money, and is going out and enjoying life. This is the type of person who goes out and does a lot of vacations. This is the type of person who usually has a spouse who does nothing but take care of them, and that's their job, right? And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I'm all for spouses being paid to take care of our disabled. Like, I'm all for that. But in the military situation, like, I almost know every time I get a military VA guy call me about, okay, can you get me my VA benefits? Can you get me my disability benefits? There's usually somewhere in the background, if they already have one check, somebody, a spouse, whose only job is to take care of them. You know what I mean? And, I know this because that's just the way the culture goes when it comes to spouses, especially military guys who get their 100% P&T or their TDIU, and now they're seeking their SSDI. Like, it's just, I don't know how they always find it, but they always find, in this case, it's almost the same thing. The veteran finds a female. The female's only job is to take care of the veteran. And that's good because, at the end of the day, there's a lot of people who don't want to work, right? And they'll say that my job is, it's all day, every day. I got to take care, and, you talk to them and you realize that's total bullshit. But at the same time, who cares? They're taking care of somebody. If they don't want to work more, if they don't want to earn more, that's fine. It is what it is. It's fine. Not everybody has to be enslaved to the system of Republic and Democrat, oriented constant capitalism. Because remember, the Democrats, they may bitch and whine about capitalism, but they sure as shit love to spend the money that comes from capitalism. You ever sit back and think about that? Capitalism is terrible. It's so bad. It's so bad, right? Right? Yeah. Well, okay. Where does the money come from that they seem so willing to spend? You ever think about that? Capitalism's so bad, right? We want to get rid of capitalism. We love socialism. Yeah, well, in socialism, people don't work as hard. So they can't push it too hard because they want to get those capitalism bucks. All right, so here's the deal. At the end of the day, just to be very fair with you, you have to understand that the culture of the SSA is about to have a massive change, a massive shift to it, if you will. Massive shifts in the history of Social Security benefits have happened many times. In fact, they're legally allowed to happen because all the money you pay in is a tax, and you have no technical legal right to it under many, many circumstances. Some of you still think you have like a special magical bank account in Gringotts over here, and you can access it, and that's where your retirement money is sitting, which is all 100% absolutely incorrect. And yet some of you still believe it, but that's okay. It is what it is. The money you paid in was spent very quickly. That's why every year people have to pay in to pay for the people receiving. Once again, the money you paid in, now that you've been on benefits for a while, it's all already been spent. It's all already gone. There's no magical bank account with your name on it, okay? Many of you do not realize that the millennials, the people who can't buy houses, the people who can't afford their student loans, the people who basically can't innovate because they don't have a garage to build something in, those are the people who are upholding the entire disability and retirement community from complete and total collapse, which is ironic because you would think the retired and the disabled would be nicer to the millennials. They're not. They're awful to them. It's just an amazing thing. Think about this for a moment. You know how you always talk about how millennials are lazy? Now they don't do this and they don't do that. Those are the people who pay for your existence. Your food comes from them. Your housing comes from them. Your car comes from them. But again, that's another thing we're not going to go into. All right, so the bottom line is this. Many of you have to understand the cultural shift that's going to occur with the Social Security Administration. So let's go back to like 1935, creation of the program, 1950s, 54ish area, stuff like that. You start to get the whole Social Security disability insurance rocking and rolling. You go to the 1970s, you get SSI being delivered by Nixon, the most liberal program that's ever been created. How the hell he passed that, I don't know. You get to the 1980s, right? 1983, the entire thing was going to collapse. So they put in a bunch of rules and regulations and laws that the politicians, just to get elected, are now basically getting rid of. So the rules and laws that they put in place to make the trust funds last longer, because the government does not know how to efficiently and effectively invest the money you pay them, well, now the new politicians are eroding or destroying or erasing, like the Social Security Fairness Act, those rules put in place to make the Social Security trust funds last longer. That's the trick. Now, what happens? What's happened is the Social Security Administration has gotten more and more aggressive with how they're trying to find fraud, abuse, and waste. Now, some of you will say Doge did this. No. This happened back in 1995, and they began to develop the programs that would become the CDI units and the IAD and these other groups. Goes back to 1995. Now, did they have all their stuff together back then? No, it was like a little regional thing. You could barely even call it a regional thing. It was just starting to spread its legs and spread its arms and say, I'm going to point my fingers in the direction of these states and start to move into that. It was a very, very introductory thing. And remember, OIG had a massive bill from 1988 that was saying, hey, y'all need to get on this because we're having some problems and the money's being spent quickly. So there was a massive cultural change in their ability to trust you as Americans to receive this money. There was a massive cultural change, right, into 1995 when they started to really go ahead and search and keep tabs on you and figure out what you were using, what and how you were, the way you were using the benefits that you received. So as this evolved, we get past 1995. Then we get to 9/11 scandal, right? Then somewhere around 2012, 2013, the entire system culturally massively shifted. And the greatest reason we know that, the massive, the system shifted from not wanting to pay as many disability claims is that there was this company called Binder and Binder. It's a really interesting study. But they basically were purchased by a massive money group. And that massive money group helped to continuously and repetitively put their ads on television. But what happened was, because there was this massive shift, and it happened on the VA benefit side too, but we'll do a video on that if you want. What happened was Binder and Binder could not afford to pay for their advertising bills. And right around the same time, they got caught with what's known as red dotting files. That's where they would have the medical file of personnel that they were trying to win benefits for, and they would red dot a page if they did not want to submit it. So the SSA came out with a bunch of rules as a result of Binder and Binder, as a result of the fraud they committed, that basically said, okay, if you don't submit material evidence, you're in big trouble, huge trouble, massive trouble. There was that shift because we knew that Binder and Binder couldn't afford their advertising budget because the SSA was now in that 2011, 2012, 2013, 2014 area, that they were now heavily reducing the amount of people that they were approving for benefits. Now, we've had many changes categorically since that 2013, 2014 era. The next big one on the pile would be 2017. That's when Bush put in Commissioner Saul, a very wealthy, comes from my background, not, religiously, but not, financially. Obviously, I'm not a wealthy person. But point is, this person, who used to own all those cachet stores in the mall, Jewish art collector, New York City. I'm sure he's going to love the new Democrat mayor they're trying to put in. But bottom line is this: he basically was the individual who Trump picked to go ahead and run the Social Security Administration. And one of the first things he did is he changed a bunch of rules and regulations, but the mega one was that he killed off the opportunity for attorneys to use certain types of evidence weight appeals into appeals council, district, circuit, and Supreme Court. When that happened, the amount of appeals that occurred going to appeals council drastically lowered because the SSA didn't want to spend as much money on appeals and having your claim continue upwards and upwards and upwards. Now, the idea of that rule was that they were going to give the same weight of evidence to the doctors that see you once for about 10 to 20 minutes as the doctor that you've been repetitively seeing as a specialist or not for an extended period. And so what happened was overnight, the advantage you had with Social Security died because in the balance of the strength of your medical expert, how much weight we gave to the evidence, how much we believe the medical evidence of your doctor, it shrunk right down to how much we were going to believe their one-time visit doctor. Now, you may say that this is unfair. You may say that this logically doesn't make sense. And you would be correct. The Republicans effed up on that one. And we still have it today, which means the Democrats effed up on that one, which means everybody just went along with it in the political parties because they don't really support disabled people or the appeal system of the appeal rights of those who are disabled or elderly or retired or widows or basically kids that don't even have a parent anymore. So what's interesting to me about this, and keep in mind, like, I'm going to be fair with you. I'm not going to bullshit you on this. The only reason I know politically what's going on, the only reason I know all of this different law at this much higher ridiculous level is because when I make these videos, I get to personally grow, although I would say I have an unhealthy relationship with my growing of knowledge base because you see me doing videos at 2 a.m. But also, I get paid by YouTube to tell you how the law works. So when I research this stuff, I'm then getting paid to tell you the way it actually is. And when you do that over a 12-year period of a YouTube channel, you start to see certain commonalities occurring between these political parties and the Social Security Administration. And I'm going to tell you what I've noticed. Okay. And this is, I think, what's important to you. Okay. This is ultimately what you should keep in mind. Democrats and Republicans don't like the Social Security Administration because it doesn't make them much money. In fact, nowadays it just costs them money. It is like an HR department that constantly has people bitching, constantly is underfunded, constantly does not know what to do with the money to have a better outcome. And ultimately, if they were to figure it out, they would destroy each other just trying to get reelected. So it's my opinion, right, that all those senators and House reps out there, you should fire all of them. All of them. Because there's very few of them that actually support Social Security. And the ones that have been complete failures at actually getting things through. Or they have fraudulently convinced you to vote for them for things that would never get passed. Many of you like Bernie Sanders. Can any of you explain? I'll take 3. I was going to ask for 7, but I will take 3 examples of major Social Security change that Bernie Sanders put through over the past 5 years, 10 years, 15 years. You let me know. The only one who really, really kicked some ass and did a good job was not a senator, was not a House rep. It was Commissioner Martin O'Malley, who came in flew all over the place, met everybody, asked everybody what their job was, learned the entire Social Security Administration from the bottom up, gave us access to data we had never seen before about how they were trying to fix these particular problems. He was the only one, right? Commissioner Kijikazi was a version of that, but Martin O'Malley was the one who actually took it and advertised it and pushed it and took things to that next level. Otherwise, what we have are commissioners trying to basically slow the bleeding. Politicians do not like Social Security. And it's not a pleasant reason why. Let me explain why. It is because politicians make money mostly off of working middle class. And working middle class are not disabled. Another thing, politicians don't like Social Security because of the bulk, which is, of course, the retired group, 62 plus, 67 for full retirement age, 70 for max retirement. Politicians don't like retired people because they are something that costs money from an era where people had an expectation of being paid after doing something. Think about that for a moment. I know you got to take a moment to let it sink in. Here we go. Here's how it works. Back in the day, people who are now in their 70s, 80s, 90s, when they worked at something and they did a good job and that thing was organized like a company, they expected stock benefits. They expected some sort of ownership percentage. They expected some sort of pension agreement. They expected some sort of benefit that would help them later in life. There was an expectation that they would get something more if they stuck around. Golden handcuffs gig. Okay. So as a result, this group, right, believed and supported firmly the idea of retirement benefits. Now you got a problem because older politicians come from that and they support it to some degree. They would like the money that you've paid over the years to go towards their projects. Maybe they want to pay, LGBTQ plus community members in Nigeria to learn how to put on, plays about Elvis, whatever. You know what I mean? I've seen them. You've seen them. You know what exists out there. You know how ridiculous it is. Okay. So at the end of the day, right, you have new politicians. And the new politicians do not have the expectation that somebody should receive something when they've been a part of it. So the new politicians, the younger politicians, basically look at this thing and they see it as throwing money into a fire pit that is going to be paid to individuals that will never be paid back to them. And they're not really that wrong, to be totally fair. They're pretty much right on point with what that whole thing is. So the whole thing is this, okay? At the end of the day, you have a situation where, to be fair, and unfortunately, there's going to be a cultural shift that occurs, right? A cultural shift that occurs with this whole situation, okay? As a result of it, you're going to see younger politicians not wanting to go ahead and spend money on, very simply put, okay, older generations or disabled people. Because if the younger middle class that turn into politicians can't afford a house, can't afford to have kids, can't afford the food in their fridge, why are they going to give a shit about the disabled or the retired? They won't. It's obvious. Most people don't think about it, but once it enters your brain, it's obvious. The sale point of, hey, one day you could have retirement benefits. Well, the average retirement check is like $1,800, $1,900, right? Per month. You pay your entire life into something that only gives you that much per month? That's the shittiest investment I've ever heard. Now, it gives you other things as well, right? It gives you other things such as, for example, it gives you spousal benefits, right? Child auxiliary benefits, sure. But what's that going to be worth? Our dollar is devaluating at a significant, unrealistic rate. And as a result, It's just not good. So my point to you with this is that you have to understand there's going to be cultural changes that occur. What do I mean by cultural changes that occur? Okay. Cultural changes. So we know that, very simply put, we had another cultural change recently happen. Okay. So we go from Commissioner Saul, he gets rid of a lot of the appeal options for people seeking an appeal for disability benefits under the Social Security Administration into federal court. Gone, right? Now we get to the new cultural change. There's a 20% increase in the amount of people who have essentially been denied at the initial filing or the reconsideration levels for disability benefits because they are mass denying people to clear the backlog. So now what you're seeing is a mass denial system. Now, there is one side to that, which is that there's a lot of people who are applying for disability benefits who have absolutely no reason to be applying for them other than, they basically had a pension vest and they're trying to get something else to just kind of cover them, or they're not really that bad and they're just trying to see what they can get, yada, yada, yada. There are those. No doubt about it. There are those. Okay. However, just keep in mind, I'm going to be very straightforward with you. Okay. Going and getting disability benefits in the future is going to be much harder. And you're going to be seeing lots of people on disability benefits while they're still held to the same legal standard when they were found disabled, will be fighting the new cultural change of disability benefits and what they expect from you. Now, look, the clearest example of this is if you take somebody from 2000, okay, went to a mental facility maybe 2 or 3 times, right? Not inpatient, just outpatient. Got a diagnosis, handed it into the court. Court said, yeah, moderate to severe. We'll give them that on a vocational allowance, 12.06 anxiety. We'll give them benefits. Cool. Now, you can't just go for a couple therapy sessions and be found disabled and given benefits. And that's one of the clear things that I think I just hope many of you realize. The thing that's protecting a lot of you from being reviewed is that some of you are approaching this retirement age option where you'll switch over to retirement. And they don't want to spend a ton of time on investigating you because you're not going to be taking a lot of money from the SSDI trust fund. You're going to be switching over to the retirement trust fund. However, those people who are in their 50s, those people are going to be highly targeted like never before for investigations, for CDR reviews. Because culturally, if they can get you back to work, then they can make money off your work product by taxing you, and then spend it on the things that they want. Now, the next video I'm going to be doing after this one is essentially about why the government actually shut down. And I have completely and utterly shut my mouth on that topic for the most part. I had somebody reach out to me last night and say, hey man, what do you think is really going on there? Because, they were worried. We're on like day 12 or whatever. And so what I said was, I don't really want to talk about it because people get too offended and there's a problem. And I'm going to tell you the real problem. The real problem that I've been having is that we get hyper aggressive people calling the law firm asking how they're going to deal with me, how they, the caller, are going to do something to me. Okay. And it is that extreme, unfortunately, it's almost always from the left. It is that extreme, threat that I keep getting from individuals. And I've decided that when you do call the firm, if you are basically going to scream into the phone and threaten something, nothing related to getting disability benefits, right? It's just people screaming at because I made a YouTube video. If you're going to call in and scream at the firm going forward, then I've told the staff members, back office mostly, to record the call. Okay. And the reason why is that those individuals are not seeking legal, work product. They're not looking for me to win their benefits. My main job as the most viewed, subscribed to, and clicked on disability attorney in America is to win disability benefits. They don't care about that. They're not calling about that. So what we're going to be doing with those individuals in the future is that when they call in with a death threat, we're going to be recording it. And then I'm going to publish it on here so that many of you can see, and those individuals will actually be shamed by doing something as horrific as that. I do not know why it is acceptable for people, especially with what happened to Charlie Kirk, to constantly make these threats. It's ridiculous. I have a staff member that's so jaded from it. They're just like, it's just another whatever. I'm like, it's not just another whatever. You know, it's not. So the point that I'm making with this situation, okay, is that at the end of the day, there's going to be a shift in how Social Security works for disability benefits and retirement benefits. In fact, all of the programs. It is not going to be pro giving people money. It's not. They are going to aggressively, which is this group, the whole point of this video, the IAD division, specifically is outlined in the Special Agent Handbook, is going to be looking at targeting particular individuals that they know are likely less potentially disabled. Now, if Trump, which I think it's a horrible idea, removes the grid rules, which were put in to fast track claims so that they don't have to spend much time on them, it will completely off balance future approvals. Now, here's the scary part. If Trump gets rid of the grid rules, that means the advantage of the 50, 55, 60 plusers will be gone. That means a massive amount of people who were normally filing for disability benefits will no longer have those protections of being found disabled. But even more so, when you get people going through CDRs that are already on benefits, what you're going to find is that they will then go through the process under the old rules, get kicked off of benefits for lack of severity. Because, you know, when you don't work for a while, a lot of you improve. A lot of your impairments improve. Your symptoms aren't as bad, right? And then what happens is, right, all of a sudden, you're in a situation where now you've been denied multiple times. You went in front of the judge. You got denied again. Now you've been denied off the benefits you used to have. And now you're being adjudicated if you refile with the new standard, with no grid rules. What is the fastest way to get a significant amount of people off of disability benefits? I can tell you what the top 5 are, but either number 1 or number 2 is to go ahead and get rid of the grid rules. That is the number 1 way or number 2 way to reduce the amount of people that are getting onto disability benefits and to slowly erode the amount of people through CDRs that they fail with refiles. So the people already on benefits that would then get kicked off and not be able to get them under the new system. What do you do with those people? Right? If somebody's been on disability benefits for 10, 15 years, how do you restart them? It's plausible. You can get them to work and do stuff, but like, what do you do? How do you restart them? So that's the problem that Trump is facing that I don't think he fully understands about this situation going forward. But the next video I'm going to be doing is going to be talking about exactly why the government shut down. And I don't know if the video will stay up because it's going to go into certain things that I'm not, you know, they don't even report it on the legacy news what happened. But anyways, the point is this. I hope you enjoyed learning about the IAD, which is the Special Secret Investigative Group within the SSA OIG, Office of Inspector General, where their main function, just so you know, with essentially doing, you know, research, surveillance, going and scraping online profiles, reviewing forms that you submitted, reviewing the communications that you've left voicemails with to the SSA, showing up and basically having team members that will go ahead and be in a surveillance van. The bottom line is the special group is called the Intelligence and Analysis Division, the IAD. And these are the groups that, and I'll quote right to it again, directly from it. These are the teams that do investigation analysis, forensic specialists, information technology specialists, special agents as well. It's like the SSA's own little FBI, CIA. That's what it is. Is it a bad thing? No. We got to get rid of fraud. You would be surprised how rampant fraud is. in the Social Security field, right? They're catching a lot of it. And what's really what really pissed me off the other day was I saw this, person commenting over and over and over again. They were like, they had a syndrome where they were just constantly aggressively attacking whatever was in one of my videos. And they kept saying, there's no fraud. There's never been any fraud. It's all just a big hoax, blah, 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 so on and so forth. And it was one of those like user accounts, like user 583692, whatever. It's like somebody who's with a political party paid that individual to create that fake account and then just, comment over and over again. Every week, I deliver to you the people who have been discovered, indicted, arrested, the people who have worked for the SSA that cheated you, the people that received benefits that cheated you. The fraud is so incredibly rampant that I don't understand how anybody could say at the end of the day that there is no fraud or that there's not much fraud. It's rampant. They had employees selling your Social Security numbers. They had employees creating fake children that would grow up and have the capacity to vote while collecting, right, the auxiliary benefits that went to PayPal accounts of the SSA employees. So I just get frustrated because I don't feel like our political parties are living in the reality that we exist within. And I'm going to throw both of them under the bus in the next video because I think you deserve to know what's actually going on. It doesn't make the Democrats look good. It doesn't make the Republicans look good. It's just one of those things you're gonna know, because I live in this field. This is my home. I live in the field of Social Security. That's where I go and read and learn. Now, with that said, okay, please remember to like and subscribe. Hit the like button. Some of you do, some of you don't, but I hope you do. Also, if you go to Google, type in Disability Resolution Law Firm or Disability Resolution Florida, throw some stars up there if you want. Totally up to you. I go live usually on Mondays and Thursdays to answer questions. Bottom line is that if you want a free session, we go live and you call in, you get 5 to 7 minutes with the call. If you want a bigger session, a 30-minute session or a 1-hour session, mini contract is below for the consultation. Also, I partner with basically Chapter. I don't do Medicare stuff. That's just not my gig. I know Medicare stuff now because I've been studying it quite a bit, but I don't do it. I'm not an agent with Medicare. I'm not setting people up for it. I'm not a broker. I'm not any of that stuff. If you want to get a tune-up on your Medicare plan, give them a call, 339-226-6287. Again, 339-226-6287. All right. Now, with that said, I'm going to catch you at the next video in about 5 to 10 minutes. I will be throwing both political parties directly under the bus. You will have a better understanding of exactly what is going on when it comes to the ACA payments, when it comes to the different types of insurance premiums, when it comes to the things that the Democrats are fighting for, when it comes to the things that the Republicans want to cancel. You will have a far superior understanding of what's going on after that video. I will catch you in about 5 to 10 minutes, and I will post the link in the chat section for the next video so that you can go right to it. Attorney Walter Hnot, thank you so much. I'll catch you later. Bye-bye. Thank you so much. All right. Bye-bye, everybody.